We all have regrets in life, but how many of us have regrets within this comic book hobby? Hi guys, welcome to Hydra Collectables, where we let our geek flag fly. My name's Luke and I'm your host, and today I'd like to open up the discussion as to whether or not we have any comic book regrets. I have been collecting comics for a really long time now, and I have to say that my regrets are few, but they are still there. There are still some regrets that I have had over the years, and today I'm going to share those with you. Stay tuned to the video to find out more. I have sold a lot of comic books over the years. Does this make me a flipper? I don't think so, but then maybe it does. When I first set out collecting comics again in adulthood, I did so wanting to complete a full run of Amazing Spider-Man. However, my local comic book store didn't have any to sell. After all, Spider-Man is a big name character for Marvel Comics that many other collectors want to collect. So instead, I used my knowledge from previous years of reading and collecting to purchase key books from other characters in other recognised franchises. My goal, of course, being to sell these books on as characters entered the MCU. And honestly, it worked. In fact, it worked really well. I made a lot of money out of this, and I used the money that I earned in order to purchase the Spidey books that I didn't have access to before. If that process makes me a flipper in your eyes, then I gladly wear that badge with pride. After all, I used my lifetime of knowledge of reading and collecting these books in order to know which characters were important, and yeah, I was able to use that money to buy the books that I actually loved. As far as I'm concerned, this is the hobby paying for itself. During this time of my collecting journey, I literally did own everything. I had key first appearances, I had minor first appearances, I had costume changes, and of course key stories. I collected the lot. I used whatever skills that I had, whatever memory that I had of certain story points from my childhood, specifically the 80s and the 90s, and I just basically bought everything in sight. So out of all these books, what have I regret letting go? Well, in order to best explain this, I have broken them down into 3 separate categories. So, starting with category 1. Books I regret not buying sooner. Well, for me, there is only one book that I actually regret not buying sooner. Now, it's easy for me to say it would be an AF-15 or a Fantastic Four issue number 1 or an Incredible Hulk number 1. Those are not books that were actually within the realms of possibility for me at the time, no. But I do regret not buying an ASM issue 1 in a grade 3.0 restored copy for £3,000. Yes, I actually had a chance to purchase one of these books just 3 years ago, and yeah, it would have been a push money-wise, and I don't think I could necessarily have done it. But, you know, in hindsight, that was within reach. It wasn't too far out. You look at these prices now, and they are insane. So, like I say, this was a restored label, 3.0, and the restoration was a little bit of colour touch and some minor glue to the spine. Both of which, as my collecting has gone on, I've become less agitated by. You know, this sort of thing doesn't bother me. I'm more fussed about missing pieces or missing pages than I am about a little bit of colour touch or glue here and there. So yeah, for me that's not really a problem, but at the time I was questioning it, I wasn't too sure, I was very new to the whole CGC thing, and yeah, £3,000 is a lot of money, specifically when, at that time at least, I had just given up my job in order to stay at home with the children. So yeah, my one book that I regret not buying was ASM issue 1, ironically the only book that I have left to go in my Spider-Man run. This brings us on to the comic books that I regret selling too soon, and this includes, but is not limited to, many different books that have since spiked in value. Now, to be fair, at the time of me selling these books, I had already quadrupled my money on them, so this isn't me moaning that I didn't make a profit. I done very well out of these books. But as, you know, hindsight, as things go, we can look back and see maybe we sold those books a little too soon, and it's a little bit hard to justify that idea in your head that it could have gone either way. It could have been a 50-50 split. I could have just as easily lost money on them as I did gain, and I should consider myself lucky for what I actually achieved. And to be fair, like I say, I really am happy with the money that I got for those. So yeah, not a massive problem. But some books of note that I think I should mention. So the biggest one, the biggest flaw in my plan was the giant size X-Men. Now for me, this wasn't so much that I regretted it too soon for money value, it was more my initial plan to begin with. So I actually purchased this book at £800 and I sold it for £2.5 grand, which is a really nice profit. However, my intention for this book was always going to be sell it in order to get the money to buy ASM 1. Now, as I just previously mentioned, issue number 1 is the final book for my collection, something that is really out of reach for me right now, and I had this chance, I had this opportunity. The Giant Size X-Men 1 should have bought me that book. However, I had to sell this book during the pandemic in order to keep things afloat here at home. And yeah, like I say, I wouldn't have it any other way. That's something that I had to do in order to pay the bills during a really hard time of, the decade of my lifetime. So yeah, I have no problems that I sold that book too soon. However, in hindsight, looking at the prices, the book that I sold was a good strong 8.0. And yeah, you're talking absolutely thousands for that book now. Not just the £2.5 grand that I made. So yeah, a little bit of a sore spot, but I know I'm not alone here. We all been through hardship these last couple of years, and I did what I had to do in order to support the family. So Giant Size X-Men is the biggest regret for selling too soon, but as well as that, I have also the X-Men issue 94, Hulk 180 and Hulk 181. So yeah, you can see a kind of trend there. X-Men and Wolverine himself have really pushed up in value over the last few months. And finally, we have books that I simply regret having to let go due to financial troubles at home, which, like I say, kind of touched upon with the Giant Size X-Men, albeit that was for a very specific reason. These two books were actually books that I genuinely wanted to keep. I had a Fantastic Four issue number 52, first appearance of the Black Panther, as well as a Superior Spider-Man variant that I had signed by Dan Slott at a comic book convention. However, Dan actually signed that this was the first copy of this particular book that he had ever signed, so it was an extra special book. Will I ever be able to get these two books back? Highly unlikely. Yes, I might be able to get a first appearance of Black Panther again, although I will be paying a lot more for it, but no, I will never be able to get that signed Dan Slott book back. And so, unfortunately for me, these are just simply regrets that I will have to continue to live with. Hi guys, Luke from the future here. So whilst editing this video, I actually remembered a comic book regret that I did have before. That's right. So before I actually made this video, there was one more comic book regret that I have since been able to rectify. What is that comic book? Well, it is actually a group of comic books. That's right, it is Edge of Spider-Verse. Now, I never actually considered this to be a main part of the Amazing Spider-Man run. I always considered it to be kind of its own thing. And so with the prices soaring high for characters like Spider-Gwen, I actually decided to let these books go. Now, as soon as I sent them off in the post, I instantly regretted my decision. And yeah, since then, I've actually decided that they do actually deserve a place within the overall Amazing Spider-Man run. So as far as I'm concerned, these are tie-in issues and they do belong in Amazing Spider-Man, albeit that they don't have the Amazing Spider-Man title. So yeah, just kicking things off, we have issue number 1 with a nice image of Spider-Man Noir. This is not the first appearance of Spider-Man Noir, but it's still a really nice book to own. We then have the main one, which of course is the first appearance of Spider-Gwen. We then have issue number 3, issue number 4, and finally issue number 5, the first appearance of Penny Parker. So yeah, these books I did actually let go, and like I say, I instantly regretted it. Now, fortunately for me, luckily for me, I was able to repurchase these for a little bit under what I actually let mine go for. Granted, these ones are in slightly worse condition also, so I guess it swings and roundabouts, it kind of balances itself out. But yeah, a comic book regret nonetheless that I thought was important to include in this video, because it's very well me saying there was 2, there was actually 3, however I have since been able to rectify this one. Anyway, back to the video. But what about you guys? Do you guys have any comic book regrets? Are there any regrets of books that you sold too soon, or books that you simply wish you never sold at all? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel, please hit that like button. Let that YouTube algorithm know that we are here and hopefully encourage others to come and check it out. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I'd like to encourage you to do so. And if you want to see more similar content, I'd highly recommend this particular playlist right up here. And until next time, I'll see you in another life. Take care.